How's it going, everybody? First day of June 2022, and it's Tactard Ted here to darken your door. So, folks, I know I've taken a few days off. I haven't probably put out a video in over a week. I have to go back and check, but I don't really care. So, what are we learning now? Well, if you take a look at the maps, you will see that Russia is continually gaining ground. Now, I could gloat and say, I told you so, I was right, but I take no joy in this, and there's a reason I take no joy in this. Because we now see how corrupt our media and our politicians and our elected officials are. Since this thing started, all you have to do is run the numbers. And you see the deficit that Ukraine found itself in. They're still in a severe deficit. They're going to be in a severe deficit. What most folks don't understand is that Russia put a limited number of troops in. They have not mobilized their army. They are not on a war footing, similar to the way it's been here in the United States for the last 20 years. We don't actually declare war on anybody. We go in and have these limited whatever. We very rarely, if ever, declare war. We'll send troops, we'll send enough to get the job done, and then we're done. And that's pretty much what Russia's doing right now. They've sent enough troops that they feel they have enough troops confidently to do the job. They have not mobilized their army. They have not declared war. Because I will tell you, once they declare war, that opens up a whole new bunch of stuff that they can use. That will also start the process of putting their conscripts in battle. Every young Russian male serves in the military unless he can get an exemption, which that's a whole nother deal. That's been a cottage industry now going on 30 years of getting a doctor who will write you an exemption not to go in the Russian military. But let's not get in the weeds on that one. The fact is that Russia can mobilize very quickly over 2 million men. Now, I hear all this from the West. All these people, oh no, they can't mobilize an army very quickly, when you do bring up mobilization. Well, I'd like to remind you something. Number one, because of conscription, most adult fighting men of fighting age in Russia have served in their military. Another thing is, at least in Siberia, a lot of kids have the experience in their 8th grade year of cleaning and firing the AK. They bring them into schools, or at least they used to. I don't know if that's still continuously the case. The Russian people are fairly familiar with the Kalashnikov rifle, the AK. Unlike us, they handle that weapon frequently, or at least are familiar with it. They know what that weapon system is. The basic infantryman's rifle, they know what it is. And they will deploy. In fact, if anything, people have thought, oh, this is going to be terrible for Putin. Putin's popularity is up. And I hate to tell you guys that. Everything our media has told us has been a lie. How the sanctions will destroy Russia. The ruble's value continues to gain. And you know who's hurting? The West. The United States, our Western European allies. They're the ones hurting. And you really have to say just how much has our media lied to us. How much has our media lied to us? And they definitely lie. We hear about how great and how freedom-loving and how great the Kiev regime is. Oh, just absolutely great. So, for some of you, it may be a surprise that Henry Kissinger is now on a Ukrainian list of enemies. Yes, Henry Kissinger, he's only 99 years old. Literally 45 years old when I was born. As long as I can remember anything about politics, Kissinger has somewhere along the line been involved. Well, Henry Kissinger made the mistake of saying that in order to gain peace, Kiev should really consider how much ground it's going to let loose of, how much ground it's going to cede to the Russian Federation. or allow to be independent. And because he said this, immediately it drew some sharp criticism from Zelensky's number 2 guy, who basically said F you. And it prompted them to put Henry Kissinger on a list of enemies. Yes, an elder statesman from the United States of America. You know, the United States of America, who this year will have given Ukraine over $50 billion of your tax money. And they're not really keen on what Kissinger had to say. No, they're keen on getting our cash. Oh, absolutely, they're keen on getting the cash, and they want no strings attached to it. But they really don't want to hear anything from us, especially if it's not what they want to hear. So we're starting to see cracks in the image of Zelensky and the Ukrainians, which is nothing new if you actually bothered to study that part of the world. This is why I get upset. You know, and I'm not upset about being called a retard. I'm not upset about being called a Putin bot or bootlicker or whatever. I don't care. I do care that I know what's going on in that region. I studied that region. I studied it long before this happened. And let me tell you what, from my standpoint, Ray Charles could see what was happening. It's clear. In eastern Ukraine, they continue to take ground. Large swaths of troops are surrendering. There are also many units in a state of rebellion refusing to go to the front. I would say right now, in some of the detention centers, they have more Ukrainian soldiers facing charges of mutiny than they do Russian POWs at the moment. And that's no guff. There are video out there on social media where Ukrainian troops basically are having it out with their company commanders or their battalion commanders. In one case, there's a colonel. Joe Snuffy Private is sitting there reading him the Riot Act. And he is not taking his shit. And I think, you know, I've said from about 2 weeks in that this all reminds me of Germany 1945, and I still stand by that. You know, you want any more proof? Germany, wonder weapons, okay? The M777s, all those are going to do it. The Javelins, those are going to do it. This is going to do it. That's going to do it. Once we get these, will be victory. That is the same attitude they had in World War II in Germany. The exact same attitude. This wonder weapon is going to be a game changer. And we're falling for it. The Ukrainians are falling for it. You know, I always wondered how did the Germans, up until the day that Berlin fell, how did they think that they were still going to win a war? Well, I can tell you why. It's because of the propaganda, it's because of the lies, and it's because of the people in the media and the statesmen who tell you lies. Yes, the statesmen. They have been lying to you. They're all lying to you. And that's the worst part about all this, folks. I take no joy in being right about this. I take no joy about it. Why? Because it's simply proof that the media and our politicians are lying again. I've told you guys from the get-go. And I know this sounds like one big giant I told you so. I just want you to think about it, though. I told you that they didn't tell us the truth during COVID. They're not telling us the truth now. Absolutely not telling us the truth. Why would you even think that they're thinking about telling us the truth? Let's be honest about all this. They very simply want you to think what they're telling you to think. And we're seeing that Donbass is well on the way to being liberated. And that a large swath of Ukrainian territory is falling to the Russians. And it's not going to stop. You know, Zelensky, I'm not even sure of total, hey, I'll give you what you got, leave me alone. I don't think that'll work anymore, Zelensky. I think you're pretty much going to have to go unconditional at this point. I've seen a lot of stuff that Zelensky coming out on Ukrainian social media, not just Russian social media, but Ukrainian social media. That Zelensky's his cheese has kind of slipped off his cracker. He's being very delusional. Once again, aka Adolf Hitler. I am not kidding, folks. And it's got so bad that our media, well, they may have to give up ground. It's not going so well. Russia is on the verge. No, Russia is not on the verge. Russia has been constantly making progress. The only place that Ukraine has been winning the war has been between the ears of people who watch MSNBC, Fox, or any of those other networks that just can't help themselves but cheerlead a lost cause. And when I say it's a lost cause, there's no amount of weapons, there's no amount of money that's going to straighten this out. In fact, if anything, I will go back to this. The supply of all the various weapons is actually detrimental. It's detrimental. In other words, let's give the Ukrainian military 40 different weapon systems and expect them to learn them and become proficient in them. That's what you don't understand. Weapons like the M777 that we gave to the Ukrainians take years to become proficient in. And, you say, well, wait a minute. Joe Snuffy comes on the scene and we train him within 6 months to be put in an artillery unit on one of those guns. Well, yes, very well, you do. The problem is the gun crew is headed by a NCO who has had a lot of experience on that weapon system. He is trained. He knows what's going on. The problem is you're putting Joe Snuffy Ukrainian on a gun system with a snuffy NCO who's had as much time on the guns as the private. He has no clue. He knows what he's read in a book. And they aren't very stealthy with it. I'll tell you what, if you don't learn anything from this war, you should learn the importance of drones. Russian Federation drones are all over the place, and Ukrainians are using them as well. But to sight the enemy, figure out where they're at, to figure out where they're hiding, and destroy them en masse. It also gives us a lot of clues as to what's going on the battlefield, especially when you start capturing cell phones of the enemy after an engagement. There was one engagement, a BTR-80, not a new vehicle, an older Soviet bloc made vehicle, took several hits from AT weapons, Panzerfaust, AT-4, and I can't remember what the third one, a bunch of mercenaries. Guy was definitely speaking in English. Two different videos. They go after this BTR, they fire at it, they don't get it. And you come back and you find out they've got the video. There's a drone sitting there watching the hits, and the BTR keeps moving. In fact, it syncs up with the Ukrainian mercenary video, and they're saying, we didn't get him, he's still moving. So we're finding out a lot of these weapons that we put so much faith in, they aren't doing that great, which really is disconcerting to me. Remember when I was a soldier running around with an AT-4, I thought, hey, I'll blow up a APC, I'll save the day, rah, rah, rah. And we're finding out that a lot of those weapons that I put a lot of faith in just don't happen to be all that. And the perception that the Russian military gear is all junk, I think that's being debunked. It's not all junk. Some of it's effective. I would say that we probably would have been a little better off had we had the forethought, if we were going to give the Ukrainians a bunch of stuff, is to go through Eastern Europe, find every single piece of Soviet equipment that these guys are already familiar with, and send that to them. It wouldn't require any extra training. There would not be a curve for these guys to overcome. But anyhow, guys, as normal, I have ranted on now an additional 5 minutes, so I will let you go. Now, there's plenty of other stuff to talk about. The shooting in Texas, what the hell's going on with the police, all that happy shit. But we will get back to you later. Tactard Ted saying adios.